I write books for all ages, all children's lit ages. So I write picture books. Bilal Cooks All is my first picture book about a little boy that likes to cook with his dad. I write middle grade books. And in middle grade, I've done fantasy, like you mentioned, Diana, Wonder Woman. I've done Aladdin, but I do, for my original work, I do contemporary work. So like Omar Rising, Amal Unbound. Those are two stories set in Pakistan, which is my ancestral roots. And I also do young adult. So I write for teens. My most recent teen book was co-written with Becky Albertalli, and it was about two teenagers who were campaigning for a local election, and romance ensues, as sometimes does. So yeah, I write the full gamut, which I feel really honored and grateful that I get to do.
And I had read that you had started reading originally at 3 years old. Is that right?
This is what I've been told. This is what my parents have said, that yeah, I was a very early reader, and that habit kind of stuck all these years later.
So do you remember, I mean, my wife picked up reading right around age 2, age 3, just kind of on her own. Did somebody walk you through it and teach you to read, or?
I think my parents read to me since I was little, and I think that's what I also do with my kids, is I've been reading to them since they were babies. And I think the more and more access you give kids to books, the more and more they get curious about it. And I think my parents' pace was just not fast enough for me. And so I said, I guess I got to figure out how to start reading because I need to. So the way that it's been told to me is that I did sort of teach myself, in the sense of like starting to sound out words. I know my first book that my parents said that they ever read to me and that I first read was it was called Pele's New Suit. It's a book from the 1920s about a little boy who shears a lamb and spins that into cotton, and the whole process of getting a suit back in the day. And I remember back then my parents would read that book to me, but substitute the name. So like Pele became Jamil, and like instead of going to his uncle, he would go to his chacha. These are like Pakistani name, like Muslim names. And so years later, when I was looking for the book, I kept looking for it with the names my parents had given me for that book. And then my parents told me, like, no, we changed them because there were not a lot of diverse books we could find. And so we kind of hacked it and made up our own names to substitute, so you could at least sort of recognize and feel a little bit seen in the stories you were reading.
They're planting the seed early that you're going to go on to eventually become one of the founding members of Read Diverse Books. And it starts right there at age 3.
Gosh, yeah, I've never connected that dot, but you're right. My parents were kind of, yeah, I think it was always in there, and you're right. Yeah, that's true.
So I'm assuming you go on to become a big reader, right? So I know you're working at Borders bookstore by the time you get to college, and you don't take that job just because of the incredible pay and benefits. So I assume that you're a book fan.
Oh yeah, I've loved to read. Every Saturday growing up, my parents would take us to the library, and we just got as many books as the library would allow us to take. And that was my entire life. And yes, once I found out bookstores existed in my teen years, I wanted to work at a bookstore. And so I took the first opportunity I could. And it was such a dream to work in a bookstore and get to see the latest things coming out, get to see authors coming in to do author talks. I'd never met an author until I was at Borders. And so for me, until that point, an author felt like, I don't know, like a myth, like a legend. Like, what do they do? Like, how do they exist in our world today? They just felt so ephemeral to me. And so seeing them sitting there, sometimes they have 3 people in the audience, sometimes they have 100 people in the audience, and getting to see that range, it really made becoming an author suddenly seem like something that I could do too. I really feel like working at Borders Books and Music, may it rest in peace, it was a good bookstore. I feel like that experience really helped make becoming an author something that I thought I could actually do.
It occurred to me that I've just said something slightly discouraging or disparaging about a bookstore, so I should emphasize that only applies to Borders that no longer exist. All bookstores operating now, fantastic and amazing.
Yes.
So, when do you get bit by the writer bug? When does it occur to you that maybe I do want to write a book?
So I feel like I don't remember it, just like I don't remember when I started reading because it's just been a part of me my entire life. Writing has always been a part of my life. I have been a notebook hoarder from as long as I can remember. And I wasn't that great at school growing up. It wasn't until 10th, 11th that I finally kind of got the hang of school. And so I would get just really bored. I would get distracted. And so what kept me sitting in my seat were writing stories. And I remember I didn't have the name fan fiction back then. I was a 80s and early 90s kid. And but I remember I'd watched Aladdin and I loved it. And so I would write fan fiction, like what happens next, and I would write offshoots. And other kids in my class caught on to the fact that I was doing this and they'd want to read my stories. And so I would share them, would get passed around. And it was really cool. Then when years later, like Disney approached me and said, we're doing a live action Aladdin book, movie. Would you like to write the tie-in book for it? And I was like, wow, I've been preparing for this since I was a kid and I didn't even know it. You're going to pay me to write a story about Aladdin when I've been doing it for free for so many years as a kid. So that was really cool how that kind of came full circle. But yeah, I've always loved to write, but I never saw it as something that I could ever do to get published because, there didn't seem to be a clear path. You can major in college in creative writing if you want or English, but that's not authorhood. That doesn't get you right into your foot in the door of a publishing house to get published. So it felt so I just didn't know how to begin. And so, like I said, it was at Borders, like getting to see diverse books on the shelves that I hadn't seen before and being inspired, getting to see authors coming in that I started realizing how to do it. I think just getting published, it's very intimidating when you're first looking at it. It just seems completely unattainable.